Welcome to HQLA. This week we had WWDC 2023, which is Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference. So that's what their normal,
Yes.
that's what their normal event is called.
Yes.
And obviously the biggest thing that came out of this, you would have seen this, is the Apple Vision Pro VR headset. So this is $3,500 USD. It's a big VR headset. It looks like you can still kind of see the stuff that's around you as you've got it on. I saw it was one of the goofiest looking things on the demo where the person is wearing them. They're looking at their coffee table and all of their apps are in front of them.
Mhm.
They've got rows of apps.
Yep.
And then someone comes into the frame and they're showing how, if someone comes into the room, you can still see them, it's normal. But then you look at the person and they've got like these big googly eyes on the outside of like the VR goggles. And I was like, what is this, Apple?
Yeah, I saw that too. So I thought it was weird. Initially, I thought it was like some sort of like translucent glass thing where you can see their eyes, but it's kind of like they've got glasses on. And so it's like, you see like old people sometimes with the really thick glasses and their eyes look crazy when they look at you. It kind of has that effect. And so I assumed it was that, and then realized that it actually has like an exterior screen that is like replaying the person's eyes that's being captured by the cameras on the inside. Which is like pretty crazy, and you can see why it's so expensive because it's got like screens on the outside, screens on the inside, but I do think it's a funny one. It's the same concept as, you remember when was it the Facebook glasses, and they had a camera in them and the light was on when it was live, as like
the Oculus.
No. I'm talking about like the glass now. I'm not talking about like VR headsets.
Right.
And it had a camera in it that could capture stuff. And they had to have a light on it for basically for security reasons or privacy reasons, because like people could just walk around and you wouldn't know if you were recording or not. So they had a little light on it. It's maybe kind of the same thing in that like you're like letting people know that you can see them or you can't see them. But yeah, it's pretty weird.
Yeah. For me, I'd rather have a MacBook. I'd be interested to see where they kind of go with this. It looks like it's just got all of the standard apps that you would kind of have in Apple software. So
did you see
I'm not sure.
how it interacts with like a MacBook? So apparently, again, this is like it's yet to sort of be seen. It's just like a demo model or whatever. But essentially, if you look at your Mac, it knows that you're looking at the Mac screen and it like makes it big. And so you use the Mac, so you use the mouse and the keyboard and stuff, but you're like looking around as if you're like almost inside the Mac, which is kind of cool.
I've seen kind of how they do Oculus stuff with the extra screens, like they make sort of extra desktops and stuff. But yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, I don't know if they'll go anywhere with it, but I think maybe some people like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I would get around it if and when it gets to the point that it is just like a set of glasses and you can, twist the little crown and they go totally opaque and you can just get like chill by yourself, and then you like twist it again and it goes totally like transparent. Like that's a vibe. But like you have to have a battery in your pocket with a cable attached to it at this point for $3,500, and it lasts 2 hours, which like I saw some commenter made a great point, which is like a lot of their marketing is like watching movies, but like most movies go for 2 hours or more. It's just like you can't even watch a movie without being plugged into the wall.
Yeah, very strange.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. We've also got auto-transcribing voice memos. So if you're not able to listen, you can see the text. So to me, that's kind of dumb because I don't listen to voicemails and voice memos in the first place. So
do you mean like?
I guess.
Do you mean like someone leaves you a message on the phone?
No, like when you tap the record button.
Oh yeah.
And it, instead of texting.
Yeah.
On the iPhone, yeah.
It transcribes it. Okay.
We've also got name drop. This was an obvious one. Put your phone next to someone else's phone, and you can choose which info to share.
Yeah, it is obvious. It's like they're just sort of keeping up at that point with that one. Like that wasn't necessary.
Yeah. Like even I wanted to do this like 5 years ago. And you can also leave a message if someone misses you on FaceTime. That one seems pretty.
No, that's cool. So that's the real time one, right? Where it's like I think it's if you leave me a message or something, that I can see you leaving the message, or like it's sending it. I think it transcribes it in real time or something, and then I can decide to pick it up or something like that. Wasn't that kind of like the thing?
I thought it was just like a video, like it just like records a video.
I don't know. I feel like it was something. I remember them making a big emphasis on, like, back in the day when you had an actual voice message. You know how people would leave it to, like, you see it in the movies where people would leave it to the voicemail, and then if they hear that it's someone that they want to listen to, then they pick it up. I think it gives you that ability, but I'm not sure how it actually does that.
That's a classic Seinfeld
Yeah.
move.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they also have the phone that you turn sideways, and you can kind of see. It's like the always on. You can kind of see a little dashboard, like you can just see the clock. It's almost like your bedside table.
Yeah, right. But it, like, doesn't
going
use
on.
power or whatever.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, not much. Okay.
Yeah, so that's it for the Apple event. We've also got Photoshop Beta. This is really interesting.
Okay.
So it comes with generative fill now. So basically, this is wild. So you can take a photo and you can change things on your photos. If you're holding a cup of coffee, you can change it to a beer. You can change it to a puppy.
So it can identify objects, sort of thing. So you can click the object. Is that sort of what you're saying?
You're in Photoshop and you select objects like you would normally, and then you could be standing in a park and you can change it to standing in space. You can add people to your photo. You can add a Lamborghini and do whatever you can think of in terms of autofilling. So heaps of people have been using this to extend photos. So like they'll take a small bit of a photo and then drag out the edges.
But is this usable for, like, a layperson, or do you still need to be do you still need to have usable knowledge of Photoshop?
Well, it's pretty easy, but if you have Photoshop, you likely aren't just like a standard.
Well, that's right. Like, for me, is this something that is useful for me who doesn't actually know how to use Photoshop? No.
But would you be interested in doing it in the first place?
Yeah, if it was as simple as, like, clicking an object that it recognizes as an object and then saying, I want this to become a puppy. But if it's like you need to, like, draw an outline around it and, like, define it as this layer and then put another layer on top of it and then add a new plane and then no, that's cool though. I like it.
All right, so where's something?
Oh,
So that was what it looked like before.
really?
And then, say if I want, let's add a dog here. So let's go generative fill, dog.
No.
And then, you ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Whoa.
And then we can say we want some planes in the sky.
No way.
Yeah, so I mean that's basically the gist of it. It's a really
That is
cool
very cool.
beta. I'll play around with it a bit more, but yeah, Photoshop beta, really cool. So
Cool. Love it. I mean, great. Thank you for showing us that. All right, so an interesting one. This is a public service announcement. And so just for people to be aware, I read it interestingly in the AFR. I think it was actually 2 weeks ago, so it's not super recent news, but it's worth knowing, which is that so here in Australia, we have HECS debts or help debts. I actually don't know which is which, but essentially it's like college debt or university debt, which the government provides for. So you go to uni, you rack up anywhere between 50 and 100K, depending on what you're doing. Basically, the way it works here in Australia is that when you earn over a particular threshold, which is in the 50s, I think, per year, then you commence paying back a portion of that, like a percentage of your salary gets paid towards that. Now, the interesting thing here is that people were getting very caught up on this indexation, which was happening about a month or so ago, or maybe even less, to be honest, which is basically you're not charged interest on this loan, but it is indexed to keep up with the value of money, basically. And so inflation had basically led to it needing to be indexed by 7%. And so people were getting concerned about that because that would mean that the amount that they needed to pay back was going up by 7%. So a lot of people, there was an article which talked about the timing of the indexation versus the timing of the tax returns. And so basically what this means is that indexation happens, I think it's at the beginning of June, and so a lot of people assumed that for that calendar year, all of their contributions, assuming that they're making more than the threshold amount, and so they're assuming they're paying it off, all of their contributions were lessening the amount or the figure that was going to get indexed because they'd been paying towards it. And actually, the way it works is that when you're paying those contributions across the year, it is sort of noted as a deduction from your HEX debt, but doesn't get applied until you finalize your tax return, which is usually anywhere between July and September, which basically means that that bulk figure that gets indexed is the big figure without being reduced by your payments across the year. And so it was really interesting. And then I thought that was a bit of an issue in the system, but then a spokesperson from the ATO commented that they see no reason to change that system unless legislated against it. So that is how it works. So if you're making contributions, it's not going to lessen the amount that is going to be applied to the indexation on the 1st of June or whenever it is. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. I've that's an annoying thing because obviously like you pay it throughout the year, and then it goes up, even though it goes up on the amount before you've even paid it off. So
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Great. Love it. Are you struggling to get your name out there? Do you want to attract more customers? Maybe just increase your revenue? Well, look no further than Unique. They're an all-in-one marketing agency, and they'll help take your business to the next level. They believe in marketing that should be both effective and enjoyable, and I tend to agree. So they offer a range of services such as web design, branding, social media management, and lead generation. The team of experts, they'll work with you to develop a tailored marketing strategy that fits the unique needs of your business. And they don't just stop at making you look good, but they're specialized in setting up lead generating machines. Their top secret methods will help you capture and convert your leads, leading to increased sales and revenue for your unique business. So search NEW NIQ UE on Google to learn more and schedule a free marketing consultation via their website. So let Unique take your business to the next level.
A few weeks ago, I talked about the Instagram's co-founders going back out again.
Yes.
Launching Artifact, making that next startup after their, massive success. So I'll be talking about Airbnb doing the same thing. So Joe Gebbia,
no way.
Yeah, so he's a co-founder of Airbnb, and he's launched a project called Backyard, which builds tiny net zero homes in owners' backyards. So essentially, Airbnb has this innovation studio called Samara. So that's where the product has originated from. And Samara is now this, it's like a VC, not a VC, it's a firm on its own. So it's like he's made his own standalone company out of this. So
is it like
it's
an
kind of
accelerator?
Well, it's kind of separated. So basically, it was a part of the innovation studio of Airbnb, and now it's split off to be its own startup.
Gotcha. Okay.
And him being the co-founder, I guess he can kind of do whatever he wants. And so pretty cool.
But wait, Samara, how does that relate to the backyard thing?
So Samara was like the innovation little hub inside Airbnb. It was always called Samara, and now it's taken out, and now Backyard is the project, and Samara
but the company's
is the name
called
of the
Samara.
company.
Okay,
Yeah.
Understood. Gotcha.
So he started by launching two tiny net zero homes. So the goal there was to make tiny homes better for backyards. So they're prefab, and they allow for some additional affordable housing to your existing property, right? So there's 3 now that he's just launched a 2-bedroom. So they start at $289,000 for a studio, $329,000.
Are we talking US?
Yeah, in US.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it is. It is a lot. But it's a very bougie.
Heaps.
Yeah, it is. But it is a bougie concept. So
well, it's net zero.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and so I think the way that it's all kind of designed and everything seems to be very Apple sort of vibe. So I think that's what they're trying to create, this kind of really premium brand version. So yeah, $289,000 for a studio, $329,000 for a 1-bedroom, and a 2-bedroom will be $369,000.
Oh my gosh!
Which includes installation in California. So
okay,
it's they put about half of the cost in installation. So
okay,
yeah. So the three sizes are 430 square feet, 550 square feet, and 690. So if that means nothing to you, that's 39, 51, and 64 square meters. So pretty small, but not too bad. I mean, 64 though is the 2-bedroom option, and that's like a 2-bedroom apartment. So that makes sense. So you can check them out on samara.com if you're following along at home. So in Australia, it's more of like a granny flat. It's just sits out the back. Part of the reason for the solution was housing affordability and a bit of a crisis around that. They're trying to make use of people's existing properties that have gone up a lot in value in California, and they have some spare backyard space. Don't want to fully extend their house or whatever. So yeah, they're prefabbed. They're designed to use half the power of a similarly sized home, and they're supposed to generate power through solar panels on the roof, right? So it's a steel frame. It's 2-inch cladding. It's comes with 5 colors, and on the actual house, 2
2-inch
colors on the
cladding.
roof.
Like, you know what 2-inch cladding means?
No, 2-inch cladding. And
What's
it's
the industry standard?
this big.
Yeah, but what's normal?
Yeah, that's normal. I don't know. Well, I don't know about. I can't speak for California, so
Okay,
that would be completely unfair. Yeah, you can add decks around the property, which is interesting. So they have like small decks around the glass doors that sort of are around the little backyard home. It'll generate enough power to offset the main power bill is part of it. So I guess it acts as a little power plant that you can plug back into your home. It's got all induction stovetop and electric ovens, and comes with a bathroom, obviously, space for your little washer and dryer in there. They've got like a little open living room, kitchen space. You can actually see the top-down view on them, which is interesting on the site. It's heaps funny that they call it such a Silicon Valley bubble, because the tab where you see what the sizes of the homes are is called tech specs.
Yeah.
Which is which is very funny because it's a home. So Joe was traveling and he's the co-founder. He visited a lot of tiny homes as research, and he found that the main things that were annoying in tiny homes was low ceilings and noisy air conditioners. So they addressed those with having high ceilings in like this traditional like kind of triangle roof style, right? They've got a quiet air conditioning system with hospital grade filtering. Overall, I think I think tiny homes are a really cool idea. I think it's
a very different play from him, isn't it? Like, this is very much just physical products as opposed to SaaS.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, yeah, it's not a consumer product, is it? It's not for everyone to use and go and travel and make a cool app. It's
Yeah, it's very interesting.
very much a physical good. Yeah, I think it's a really cool idea. They're trying to sort of make that Apple 3 product lines, only a few variations. So that's their primary move there. I think it's pretty cool. I think if they can it's more productizing the space sort of thing. So with a builder, you'll typically have a small builder that will do this sort of thing, and it'll take, you can go through every option and you can decide what you want, and you can, it'll be really specific and tailored to you. And so with a builder, that's kind of what I feel like that is what a lot of people would want. And so I think he's kind of bringing out this thing where it's like, no, just consider it. It's like a laptop, or it's like it's like a pair of headphones. We've got 2 options. We've got 3 options. Or
I think that is right. So I'm just looking at the thing that I thought was like, surely this is already a fairly saturated market in California specifically. And so I'm looking at a few different competitors, and your point is exactly right. Like, all of them, when you get to like pricing options and stuff like that, it has so many different options, and it talks about getting a free quote, like send us an email, give us a call, blah, 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 which is a big barrier to actually just entry. Whereas what you're saying is true. Like, it's literally like you go onto their website, Samara website, and it's literally like, as you say, 3 options. Oh, cool. There's the price there. I know what I'm in for. It is kind of expensive, but at least I understand what it is. And then off you go. You're right. It seems easy.
Yeah, so there could be, there's definitely pros and cons around that. So yeah, very interesting. So that's it so far. I like the idea. Hopefully it works. But it seems like something where if you were really picky, you would kind of go for an individual builder and you would talk to someone that you know and you would do that. I mean, I guess part of the issue there as well is like you have to know someone, you get a recommendation and you get the builder, whereas this is like, oh, this is this cool product. It's like a product instead of a building, you know? So yeah.
Yeah, interesting. All right, there you go. I think the point to be taken away there for me is, you listen to a lot of business commentators or, business performance people, and they talk about finding your niche, sticking to it, getting good at that thing, whatever. And this defies that a little bit in that if that was the case, like you look at the Instagram people and they're basically leveraging the skills that they've learned in one project and just applying it to a slightly different issue. Whereas this is very different. This is arguably applying considerably different skill sets to a different issue. And so it is cool though. Like I think it's encouraging because I like the idea of like just doing lots of different things. And so sometimes it's a bit, I don't know. I feel like sometimes it's a bit sad when people are like, "Oh, you got to just do your niche." I'm like, "Oh, it's boring though."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it goes with his Airbnb. Like, it's like it feeds into his Airbnb
No, for
concept
sure.
as well, because the main people can live in the back house and they can rent out their front, or they can rent out the backyard and they can live in their house. You know, so yeah,
Yes, you could imagine there would certainly be the people who are building these granny flats would certainly be marketed as like potential Airbnb hosts in the future. Yeah, you can
for
definitely
sure.
see it being like an augmented product here, where they certainly relate. So yeah, it's interesting. Nice stuff. Are you struggling to get your name out there? Do you want to attract more customers? Maybe just increase your revenue? Well, look no further than Unique. They're an all-in-one marketing agency, and they'll help take your business to the next level. They believe in marketing that should be both effective and enjoyable, and I tend to agree. So they offer a range of services such as web design, branding, social media management, and lead generation. The team of experts, they'll work with you to develop a tailored marketing strategy that fits the unique needs of your business. And they don't just stop at making you look good, but they're specialized in setting up lead generating machines. Their top secret methods will help you capture and convert your leads, leading to increased sales and revenue for your unique business. So search NEW NIQ UE on Google to learn more and schedule a free marketing consultation via their website. So let Unique take your business to the next level. Have you ever wondered why Burger King is called Hungry Jack's in Australia?
I have wondered this. Yes, yeah.
Do you know why?
I'm not sure. No.
Intellectual property.
Someone owns the name.
Yeah. Would you like to hear more?
Yes, absolutely.
So this actually, I just give you the rabbit warren which I went down to actually get to this topic. And so it started by, I saw in the news this week that Pizza Hut Australia, the franchise license was purchased by a company called Flynn Restaurant Group, which is the largest franchisee in the US. And so that then led me down a bit more of a rabbit warren, I suppose, or whatever you want to call it. In that I was like, oh, hang on a second, but there's another company that owns, like Yum Brand is like a pretty big publicly held food brand company in the US. And I was like, oh, but don't they own Pizza Hut? I don't understand how this works. And then I realized that like owning a brand and being a franchisee of that brand are two very different things. And that there's these people who have made a lot of money leading up basically between the 50s and now, who have just specialized in being a franchisee. And that like these massive franchisee companies who own, like, for example, the franchisee license for like every Wendy's, every KFC, every Pizza Hut. And then they're just operators, which I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. And then I looked at the equivalent in Australia and landed on a guy named Jack Cohen, who is we're going to learn a bit more about. And so he's the Hungry Jack's man, and you can already see a link in the name there to him. And so we are going to dive into that. So do you know what the oldest American fast food chain is? I wonder if you would know this. It's not anything we've ever seen in Australia.
The oldest American fast food chain.
Yeah.
Well,
arguably
obviously-
sort of the first one.
Okay, obviously it's not going to be
It's not
McDonald's
McDonald's.
then, because yeah,
You would know that. Yeah.
I would know that.
It's called
Yeah.
White Castle. Have
White
you ever heard of
Castle.
this?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
have only have heard of it like in a movie or something, for example.
I've
I've been
seen
to
it
the US.
so I know it from Impractical
Okay.
Jokers because,
Oh,
the
yes.
the show with the four guys, and they go behind the counter and they have to do just ridiculous stuff behind the
Yes.
counter.
Is that the one where he has to, I think he's serving with just the apron on or something like that?
Yeah, some stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, I have seen that one. Yes, good touch point. So they were founded in 1916, which is a really long time ago, more than 100 years ago. And so Burger King, let's talk about the foundations of Burger King, and then we'll weave that into how that sort of extended into Australia. So Burger King was founded in its very first iteration in 1953. And now I say that because it was not called Burger King. It was called Insta Burger King.
Wow.
Insta hyphen burger, second word King. And the reason for that is because it was based on a machine called the Insta Broiler. And so this allowed them to cook the burgers. So they could cook up to 400 burgers an hour. And it was, when you go to these hotels and when you cook toast, you don't put it in a toaster in a hotel. You put it in the little conveyor belt and it goes in and then it goes down and it comes back out. Yeah?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Same product, but it was for burger patties. And so this was this big thing. It sort of was one of the instigators of the ability to create fast food burgers. And so they were so encapsulated by it, they called it Insta Burger King. However, the machine quite quickly became unreliable. And so David Edgerton, who was one of the two co-founders of Burger King, allegedly got so annoyed with it that he vowed to create his own proprietary cooking method. And so basically that's what ultimately led to their kind of like well-known flame cooked burgers. And so they changed their method. And so that's kind of now one of the hallmarks. If you see a lot of their branding on TV and stuff like that, it has flames everywhere and it's, flame cooked Whopper and stuff like that, right? So at this point, unfortunately, quite quickly, and that is within about 6 years, they ran into some pretty serious financial difficulties. So much so that two of the franchisees who had started a bunch of restaurants actually purchased the whole brand and renamed it Burger King. And so that was the foundation of Burger King as we know it today. So if we skip a number of years, get us to 1967, at this point, Burger King is purchased or acquired by a company named Pillsbury. Now, you won't necessarily have heard of Pillsbury, although it is, I think, still to this day, one of the largest like cake mix manufacturers in the US. Is, or it certainly was, owned for a time by General Mills. I'm not sure if it still is. General Mills is, one of the biggest cereal cake companies in the US, and I think even into Australia. And so this is an important point. It seems irrelevant, but it is important. We'll come back to it in a minute. And so one interesting point that's just funny is that so obviously Pillsbury's buys Burger King and they're trying to revive it and expand it, make it bigger. They think they know what they're doing. They're a big corporate, and so they poach the McDonald's chief operating officer, whose name is Donald Smith. And he becomes the CEO of Burger King for a period of time. So let's talk about the global expansion. So in 1963 was the first location internationally for Burger King, which was Puerto Rico, actually. Second location was Canada in 69. And third was Australia. So we're third on the list of importance, which is interesting. And so if you were to travel in time into three different time periods, if you into the 70s, as I said, where Burger King first came to Australia, you'll notice that there was only Hungry Jack's stores. Now, what you may not realize due to our age is that if you were to come to Australia in the 90s, particularly maybe in the first half of the 90s, you'll notice both Burger King's and Hungry Jack's stores. Did you know that?
No.
Yes.
Interesting.
So there was both, a substantial number of both. But now, which is our current experience, there's only Hungry Jack's stores. So we're going to dissect how that happened and why that happened. So basically, foundations. I mentioned Jack Cohen. He's originally a Canadian businessman, now lives here in Sydney in Australia, and he became the exclusive and sole franchisee in Australia. Had the rights to the territory to open. He was the person who could open stores that were Burger King stores. He opened his first store in Perth in Australia. And it's worth noting here the way that it's structured in the US. So Burger King has a number of subsidiaries that are responsible for different things. One of them, for example, is Burger King Brands, which is responsible for all of their IP management. And there's about 40 or so of these subsidiaries that look after different elements of the business. Now, unfortunately, in 1971, as I mentioned, they reach out to, they establish a connection with Jack Cohen, and they quickly realize that the trademark for Burger King in Australia is already taken. And so this is an issue and a large oversight by the in-house counsel, in my personal opinion. Particularly since it was third on the list. It's not as if they came to Australia 10th on this list of international countries. It's obviously a priority, and yet no one realized, or too late realized, that it actually wasn't possible to go there with the branding. So what did they do? So basically, I should just quickly mention like the foundations of trademarks. So basically, you can kind of take it all the way back to 1883, which is called the Paris Convention, which forms like a bunch of IP-related standards. And that links on to all of the countries that are in the World Trade Organization, and basically stipulates that you need to manage and operate your IP in a uniform manner to uphold some of the IP standards, which is really important, I guess, in a commercial world. And so it's interesting. So basically, Burger King US did try to negotiate purchasing the Burger King IP from the owner here in Australia, but it was declined. And so instead, what Burger King did was provided Cohen with a list of options, like a list of names that they did have trademarked here in Australia. And one of them was Hungry Jack.
Yeah.
Now, the reason why, and this comes back to the Pillsbury thing, the reason why they did have that trademark is because if you were to Google Hungry Jack pancake mix, it is a pancake mix that's still made to this day by the Pillsbury brand. And so for that reason, they held it just in case that brand wanted to, extend into Australia. So he liked it. Evidently, his name's Jack. Obviously, that seemed favorable to him. And so they added an apostrophe and an S to make it possessive. And so it became Hungry Jack's. Now, you might be wondering, but who owned Burger King in Australia? Who owned the IP? Well, it's a man who I could find little information on, but I can give you some. His name's Don Dervin, and he was originally an American who obviously was aware of Burger King through some series of very smart events, came to Australia, checked, and realized that Burger King was not registered here. I don't know whether he came back to Australia with a list of, we're talking in the 60s here. So came back to Australia with a list of options and was just, maybe he went to the intellectual property registry and just asked them, is this registered? Is this registered? Is this registered? And found Burger King, realized it wasn't registered. Because I can't imagine how any other way that he would have been able to do it in that time. It's not like he was able to, I assume he wouldn't be able to jump on the internet and just type them all in. Anyway, so he realized, purchased it, or registered it is better. And so he started his own very small chain of Burger Kings here in Australia. And it was waitresses on roller skates who would come out with the burgers and deliver it to people in their cars. And he ended up with about 17 restaurants, so not insignificant, mostly in South Australia, a little bit in WA. And for Gage, allegedly 1970s, his revenues were in the realm of about $1 million annually, which is, I think, something like reaching almost 8 million in today's money. So as I mentioned, he wouldn't sell the IP because he knew how valuable that was to Burger King, but he did agree to sell a number of his stores. And so Burger King, or more specifically, Jack Cohen, purchased a number of his physical locations. and rebranded to Hungry Jack's, as I mentioned. Now, going forward a little bit here to the 1990s, by this point, Burger King had become one of the largest international franchisees for the Burger King company. And in 1993, the Burger King trademark expired in Australia.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So Burger King Corporation, of which I'll refer to them as now because it's going to get confusing. Burger King Corporation, being the company in the US, purchased the IP in Australia. So now they own the brand. They can go in and they can start operating Burger Kings in Australia. But they have that exclusive agreement with Jack Cohen, who owns, by this point, 250 Hungry Jack's stores in Australia. And they can't necessarily go in and infringe on that. So basically, at this point, Burger King Corporation realized that there was some success in Australia. Australians were liking the product, liking the stores, and they wanted in. So they made numerous unsuccessful attempts to purchase Jack Cohen's Hungry Jack's business, essentially. Go in, buy it all up, make it all corporate owned, and roll it out as Burger King, now that they own the IP. But he declined. So instead, as I said, this is all in 1993, Burger King purchased, this is really interesting, Burger King Corporation purchased 4 existing Hungry Jack stores from separate franchisees. So people who had franchised from Jack Cohen as the major franchisor, and rebranded them to Burger King stores behind his back.
Yeah.
So some litigation ensues. So in 1998, so it's 5 years later, I guess this was maybe just a legal thing. Like this stuff takes a while usually.
Yeah.
Burger King Corporation attempted to formally terminate their agreement that they had with Jack. And they, at the same time, announced a $50 million plan to open 40 Australian Burger King restaurants. And Cohen, at this point, Jack Cohen, counterclaimed, saying that they had breached their contract. And they claimed that he had, in fact, breached the contract in that he had not opened the required minimum number of annual stores, which was stipulated in the agreement. So there's 2 claims. They're in court. Who's going to win? Well, basically, long story short, is Jack Cohen won, and the court awarded him $70 million, about 70, I think it's $71 million in compensation and the right to continue the contract as the sole and exclusive franchisor in Australia. So by 2003, the Burger King Corporation had totally relinquished their operations to Cohen. There would have been some transaction there, whether they sold their properties that they had started to develop there or what happened there, I'm not sure. But in true Aussie fashion, so there was total access to Burger King at this point because they own the IP. They could have licensed it to him. But he decided to retain the Hungry Jack's branding and rebrand the, by this point, 81 Burger King stores that were established in Australia, rebrand them to Hungry Jack's and formed a network of 300 stores of Hungry Jack's stores. And there's a comment here. I'll just read it out to you. So Cohen comments here to a paper saying, if someone can show us that changing the name to Burger King improves our image, then we'd have to consider it. But to change it just in order to have uniformity with international markets does not deliver a local benefit, which is true. It's interesting.
Wait, so that's interesting. Wait, if we go back a sec.
Yeah,
so
go ahead.
He's actually gone. He's like he had the option there to license that Burger King name after all these lawsuits and stuff.
Correct.
And he's gone through this whole turmoil. He's gone through this, 20-year process or whatever. And then at the end of the day, he's taken this huge cash settlement and then not used the Burger King name anyway.
Correct.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
It is very interesting. So nowadays, it's still so he's the CEO of a company called Competitive Foods Australia. Competitive Foods Australia is that sole franchisee for Hungry Jack's here in Australia, and there's now circa 400 stores in Australia. And as I said, he's the CEO of that holding company. Also worth knowing about Jack Cohen is that he's also responsible for bringing KFC to Australia. It's crazy, some people just do so much. However, they sold all 44 of their Australian stores back in 2013 for about $55 million to a different company. He also had the controlling stake in Domino's Pizza franchise Australia prior to it going public in 2005, and he owned a large stake in Lone Star Restaurant, the chain that arguably is not that successful here in Australia, but still seems to continue somehow.
They closed down the one just here the other day.
Oh, they did? As in the one in the
There's one in
shops?
Katara. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, finally. I mean, that was long lived. Like, honestly, that stayed open for quite a while, and it was always empty.
Yeah.
And he even had a large stake in the 10 network, He May Still, which is still pretty crazy. And so to him personally, he is 80 years old. As I said, he lives in Sydney. He's ranked number 15 by Forbes in Australia in total net worth, and they approximate his net worth to be somewhere around $3 billion. At the peak of COVID, that number was 3.2 billion. And just prior to COVID, so a year earlier, his net worth was approximately 1.6, which means that during COVID, allegedly, he doubled his net worth, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy.
And now sitting at 3, approximately. So, interesting guy. That is the story of Hungry Jack's and Jack Cohen here in Australia.
Yeah, cool. I mean, yeah, it's really interesting to see how he kind of took that brand that was sort of like it's like one of those domain people that buy all of the domains.
Oh yeah.
Of people,
Yes,
registering businesses and
yeah.
stuff
So
like
Don
that.
Durvin, who you're referring to there, did that. That's right. Maybe that was the point. Maybe he went to the US, got a list of all the most successful brands, came to Australia, and just registered all of them or anything that he could. That's true, and that's, as you say, a lot of people do that with domains nowadays. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. It is worth noting. I'm not going to go into any detail because I haven't done enough research, but there is a lot of high court decisions here in Australia that try to interpret what is kind of like using a trademark not in good faith, if that makes sense. So registering a trademark that is an established brand in another country, registering it here in Australia just for the purpose of kind of leveraging that position. And there's some argument that had that have happened later. So for example, if that happened now, there's some argument for them being able to get control of that IP based on some case law decisions as opposed to the legislation. But yeah, it's interesting. Are you struggling to get your name out there? Do you want to attract more customers? Maybe just increase your revenue? Well, look no further than Unique. They're an all-in-one marketing agency, and they'll help take your business to the next level. They believe in marketing that should be both effective and enjoyable, and I tend to agree. So they offer a range of services such as web design, branding, social media management, and lead generation. The team of experts, they'll work with you to develop a tailored marketing strategy that fits the unique needs of your business. And they don't just stop at making you look good, but they're specialized in setting up lead generating machines. Their top secret methods will help you capture and convert your leads, leading to increased sales and revenue for your unique business. So search NEW NIQ UE on Google to learn more and schedule a free marketing consultation via their website. So let Unique take your business to the next level.
My next segment is someone everyone else would have heard of, maybe not Nathan. All right, so I'm going to be talking about Sound Ventures. So this is a venture capital firm which is created by Ashton Kutcher. So
I have heard of him.
There you go. So it's actually really cool. So it seems like he is more than just Michael Kelso from that 70s show, which is how he sort of started out. So this is Soundwaves seems to be the name of the current fund that they're running. And basically, or the fund that has been established, years ago, and they're running it sort of at the moment. So they've just established a new fund as well. So I'll talk about that in a sec.
Okay.
So Soundwaves is basically this investment vehicle that allows for sustainable, clean business. And the thesis is completely focused on sustainable supply chain management, right?
Okay.
So their previous fund seemed to be called A-Grade Investments, and they currently have a new fund. So the reason I'm bringing this up now is because they've made a new AI fund, which has been oversubscribed at $240 million. So this fund includes investments in OpenAI, Anthropic, and Stability AI. So those are three pretty interesting names in the space at the moment.
Could I ask, do you think that the founding of this was like, again, you are right. I don't really know who Ashton Kutcher is. Would he have made enough money in doing whatever he did to probably initiate this, like fund himself to a certain point?
So I would say so. I would have said so before I prepared for this one, but he actually does have all the LPs, like a traditional structure. I think it's more his brand name
Yes,
and
that's what I was
everything.
wondering. Is he leveraging his finance, or is he leveraging sort of his like optics, like his position in society? It sounds like he's maybe just using his notoriety. Yeah.
Yeah. So you would have thought that, but he actually started this. He actually started doing this in 2009. And so, I mean, that would have been when he was at this time of being pretty popular. Yeah, so across all of his funds, he's got over $1 billion in assets under management. So this new one is a 240 mil.
You said
round.
oversubscribed. What does that mean?
Oversubscribed means that there's too many people that jumped in on the fund. And so what would have happened was they would have all been scaled. Since they're his LPs, they're sort of his people he's got all these relationships with, his limited partners. And
so he would have basically told them the maximum amount that they were able to invest. Is that what you're saying?
They would have said, here's $20 million. And then if he had, 24 of them that all said, here's $20 million, he would have scaled them all to 10.
Yeah. Here's 10 back. I only want 10. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. And so that would have been the way that it worked. Either that or he's taken on more. I don't think he has taken on more capital than the fund size was supposed to be, but that would be the second option. But that gets messy with the performance that you're trying to deliver. If you just say, I want 200 million, and then you get 300 million, you're not going to perform as well because
more money's not always better, is it? When you get to that scale, it's actually difficult to deploy that much, and it was not in your business plan or whatever your plan for the fund to deploy, 50% more money. And so it's true.
Exactly.
It's interesting.
Yeah, so you might turn those 30% returns into 15% when you have too much money. So that's the issue. So he said that it's potentially the most significant technology since the advent of the internet is the
speaking to AI.
Yeah, AI. So basically, and I'd agree with that. It's really important. Mm-hmm. He is really impressively switched on. So I've watched a bunch of interviews with him, and he's in the early 2000s. It was kind of like this romantic comedy actor, like just really airhead, like really seemed really dumb. Always played this really dumb character. But yeah, he's really he's really clever. So Ashton has known Sam Altman for over a decade, which is interesting.
Oh.
So that's how he got into the OpenAI round. So obviously we don't need to talk about how OpenAI's products, everyone knows GPT-3, GPT-4, DALL-E at this stage, basically. So that's OpenAI. Anthropic, this is the second investment that they've made. So this one's interesting. It's a company that's all about creating AI research products that are about putting safety first. So if you look up their website, it's actually really cool. Their first product seems to be called Claude, and it's an AI assistant for tasks. It looks like you can plug it into Slack, and I'm assuming you can give it to some general tasks around processing language. On their website, it's advertised as being useful for customer service, paraphrasing legal documents, coaching, like giving advice and stuff, searching where to get your coffee, back office tasks like summarizing emails, and some sales stuff. So I would say that this product's actually been around probably before ChatGPT, because it doesn't seem as amazing now as like what it would have 2 years ago or whatever. And I don't know when it came out, but I would say it's probably been one of those things, but it was just like a corporate only sort of product.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like the main advantage, this is geared towards companies and commercial uses. So I reckon the main advantage here would be around privacy, like privacy and safety of data and safety of your kind of company. So for example, you shouldn't, I actually did a presentation on AI this week at work. And
really?
Which is pretty cool. I should have brought that up in our intro.
Yeah.
But so it was pretty cool. It was to the full team, which was cool. But really, you shouldn't be putting in, and this is, verbatim, you shouldn't be putting in customer data or company-specific emails into ChatGPT, right?
Yes.
Because it's this public forum. You don't know what the security's like on the back end.
Hmm.
You're putting in, an email which might have personal data in it or personal information, and it's taking that and putting it in its database. And so if you have a service that you really trust, like this custom fitted service, a bit like what Anthropic seems to be trying to do, you kind of have more, you could probably have some contracts in place so that if there's a data leak or something like that, you have the right to sue them, or you have the right to, the criminal charges that go behind it or whatever it is. So so that's really cool. The third company that they're invested in is Stability AI. So this is the company that created Stable Diffusion, which is the deep learning text-to-image model, which creates detailed images based off text descriptions. So I'm going to show you some.
Okay.
I'm going to do a little sharing sesh.
Here we go.
I put in two guys recording a podcast, and one of them's a knight in shining armor, and one of them is a astronaut, right?
Okay.
Here we go. Here's a couple of the options. So there's this one.
Wow.
There's this one. It's just generating these things straight up.
Whoa.
And pretty cool. And then there is this one as well, which is pretty cool. So that's actually Dream Studio. So they make a product called Dream Studio, which this is their like sort of premium paid sort of.
Is this the same as DALL-E?
No. This is Stable Diffusion. This is a different company. So this is the third company that they've invested in.
Do they do the same thing? You're saying it's text to image, right?
Yeah, they do. They do a similar thing,
it looks
but they
better
have different.
To me, actually.
Well, they've got different styles and different methods. So then this is Stable Diffusion, which is their other sort of product. This is Dream Studio, which seems like they've taken Stable Diffusion and they've added constraints and added more things and added more styles as well. This is the raw Stable Diffusion that you can find on the web. So this is the version. So I've compared them. So this is heaps weird, this version, right?
Oh.
So as you can see, it's like more realistic, like it's more photorealistic.
Yeah.
But it's like very strange, right?
Yeah, the face is weird.
Yeah. So faces and stuff. Yeah, so super strange, right? And then what I've put in, so this is Dream Studio by Stability AI, which is the company. And then these are the Stable Diffusion versions, which are not the Dream Studio ones.
Gotcha.
And then you can put in, I was to find a specific style, right? So I put in like samurais that are also street racers that have cool 90s cars, right? Because I was like, okay, like what can I put in? And so it comes up with like this guy, this is into Stable Diffusion. It comes up with some like random kind of stuff, but it is really interesting to kind of play around with. It's like, it's definitely got some of the style I was trying to capture, but not fully
yes.
there. I put in, it's really cool what you can do. And I wasn't sure if it would recognize, so this is the next one. I wasn't sure if it would recognize specific TV shows or cultural things. So I was like, okay, like what would it do if I gave it Breaking Bad in the 1950s, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because I was like, I wonder if it can recognize specific branded stuff. Like in Breaking Bad, there's, the bald guy with the mustache, Walter White, right? And so it actually came up with some like 1950s sort of stuff. And this is actually what he looks like. So
he does look like that, yeah.
It's really interesting that the model has sort of been trained on, it's probably been trained on the frames from the TV show, right? This one's heaps funny. And this gives you an example of how the faces are so weird. But I put in Seinfeld if it was made by Supreme. And so this is what it comes up with.
Whoa.
How weird is it? Yeah. And but I mean it gives you an idea. This is all not Dream Studio. So now if I go back to Dream Studio, what else have I put in? This gives you an example of what they can kind of turn it into. This one's cute crocodiles in space. And so it gives you an example of like what they can kind of take Stable Diffusion with all the weird
Mm-hmm.
photorealistic images,
Mm-hmm.
and you could make a like a crocodile in space that's like,
Yeah.
I don't know, and like, oh, and I put in the same prompt with the Yakuza samurai 90s stuff, and it comes up with this like cartoon image, which is actually
Whoa.
pretty good. Like,
That is actually really interesting.
yeah, and so and it came up with also a guy with a t-shirt and like stuff like that. So yeah, anyway, so like it's taken those weird sort of photorealistic like style things and come up with some other stuff. So those are the three investments that he's done so far with
Okay.
that
With
fund, and
this
I'll
fund.
I'll
Yeah.
come back to that fund in a sec. But the team
Okay.
at Sound seems to be made up of 10 people, and there's three general partners, including Ashton Kutcher as one of them. They've had 35 total exits across their funds so far. So from what it looks like, I think that they've had two funds, but they might have had more. I'm not 100% sure on it.
Would there be any assumption that some of these exits, or that some of the exits that are included here, are personal exits of the people who are GPs? Because it seems like too many fantastic exits for like one or two prior funds. Do you not think?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they went and put in their like I'm not sure if the fund went and bought off their angel investing, because basically he's done angel investing
Is he
personally.
including those angel investing exits in this webpage here? That's
Well,
what I'm asking.
it wouldn't be unreasonable to think that they started the fund. So they started the fund in 2009, before a lot of
Yeah.
these companies were funded, or before they started and whatever. And so yeah, I would believe that they've done it in the fund.
Mhm.
Um,
Okay.
and then
That's crazy.
even if it was angel investments, they could have sold their own angel investments to the firm, and then had an early secondary exit there, and then still participated in the whole exit because they work there. So some of the biggest exits that we've seen on the list: Airbnb, we were talking about earlier, Bird Scooters, Duolingo, GitLab, Lemonade, Pinterest, Robinhood,
It's crazy. It's like
SeatGeek,
every company.
Shazam, Square, Spotify, Uber. So yeah, pretty cool.
What the heck?
Yeah, so that's the 12 most sort of notable that I saw on there.
Yeah,
Yeah, pretty cool, hey?
that's crazy.
So it seems like they would have had massive success
It does seem like that.
if they've exited from those, and maybe they still hold some positions in some of them, or I'm sure they hold heaps of positions in other companies as well. So who knows what their exits will look like in 5 years? Might be huge. So yeah, so the whole strategy is the fund takes when they start a fund, they take a high risk, high reward strategy. So they invest in a smaller number of companies in each fund that they do. So one of the advantages of Sound that they brought up was that they're able to invest in companies that are competitors, which is a unique VC deal.
As in, they invest in two different competitors.
Yeah, so that's something that they were talking about as their unique advantage, I think. So apparently VCs can't invest in competitors generally. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
right.
Yeah, it's cool. So their new core AI fund is about foundational models. And then the way that Ashton's described it is it's more of a Web 1 approach. So that means that this is the layer one. This is the mobile revolution, the web revolution. And then the application layer will be built on top of that. So most of Sound Ventures capital is invested in that foundational layer with only smaller amounts and potentially in other funds that they start or whatever that will be invested in that application layer. So in VC firms, the funds are usually like a 7 to 10 year thing, right? So they started this in 2009, and so they're likely to have had those two funds that we talked about before, and they're starting this new one now, and so it's unclear they could have had other funds along the way as well, and so yeah, that's really interesting. So a lot of what Sound believes is actually that the incumbents that are able to adopt this technology are the ones that will capture a lot of the value from AI. And so the reason behind that, and so typically you'd think, oh, new technology, you think of Netflix and Blockbuster, right? You think of Blockbuster just being that incumbent, and Netflix comes along with a new model and completely upends them. So the reason that Sound believes that the incumbents will end up capturing this data is because, or capturing this this value, is because they have these huge data sets. They have proprietary data, and they have specific customer data relating to their specific product, right? And so then they will be able to use that to generate and use parts of these models and parts of AI and generate their own AI teams to kind of make their own machine learning model based out of their own data.
Which is
And
more accurate because they have the most amount of data.
yeah, exactly. And then they'll win based on some random startup which has no data and a better model, So so it's interesting.
It's a good point.
Yeah, for sure.
On that topic, just very quickly,
Yeah.
if anyone wants to listen to an interesting podcast, Mark Zuckerberg was just on Lex Fridman in the last week, and it's very interesting. They talk about them purposely allowing a lot of their products to be open source so that people can use them. And one of the things that Mark Zuckerberg says is the reason he does that is because the number of data points that are required for these LLMs is so huge that there's only literally a handful of companies in the world who could develop them. And so if development on top of that was predicated on you needing to have all of those data points, then the development would be so slow. And so he's like, it's a no-brainer that it has to be open source to allow people to build on top, as you say, to build application layers.
Yeah, interesting. Hey. Yeah, so they hosted this competition. This is an interesting, fun bit that I found from a while ago. They hosted this competition where they fund a company that wins out of 1,000 competitors. And so this was 6 years ago that I found it. They funded this company called Opus 12, which seems to have rebranded themselves to 12. But that was a climate change company turning CO2 products that are normally made from fossil fuels. They're turning the CO2 output back into those products that are normally made from fossil fuels. So the whole thesis of the company is that carbon can be recaptured in the air now and turned back into these usable products. So yeah, that was an interesting one that they were passionate about. So they've gone and they're super passionate about the sustainable, environmentally friendly sort of stuff as well. So that's pretty cool. So I think that was part of the thesis of their second fund, which was Sound Waves, was what it was called. So yeah, that was pretty cool. And their Sound Waves one was environmental friendliness in supply chain management. So yeah, that was a bit of a specific niche, but it's cool that they can sort of form funds around sort of niches.
It's a hot topic for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it was particularly because I think they formed it 5 or 6 years ago. So I think it was a more more vibrant, more relevant topic then as well. So that's cool. So yeah, Ashton Kutcher played Michael Kelso in That 70s Show. He was in 2.5 Men. He's been in countless rom-coms. He even played Steve Jobs. It's absolutely crazy to see him from playing these roles as this dumb sitcom actor to a seriously sophisticated investor that is on Bloomberg Technology giving these really good takes. It's on CNBC and everything like that.
Does he seem to still be an active actor, or do you feel like he's fully transitioned into this finance world?
I think he might have fully transitioned, but
Right.
I haven't seen. Actually, he did do a show recently. So yeah, it's cool to kind of.
Oh, so he's maybe doing both.
Have both.
Yeah. Although, could I say, to your point, is it he is an actor, so he should be able to act as an intelligent financial investor?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whether or not he is that is unknown.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, yeah, who could tell? But no, he I think the level of quality in the answers off the top of his head was impressive when they were asking about returns and portfolio makeup and all these different sort of things. He was right there with the answer, and I was like, whoa, he didn't say because he was sitting with his business partners.
True. He didn't
all
defer
interviews,
Yeah, right.
and he will just answer questions and nail it. So yeah,
Sick. Love it.
pretty cool. This has been HQLA episode 34. Thank you for tuning in again. We've been talking intellectual property, we've been talking venture capital, and we have been talking about Apple. As well as that, there is small homes in your backyard. Watch out. So thank you very much from Nathan and Isaac. This is the show where we talk about cool topics. HQLA.